Good morning and thank you for joining us on Africa This Morning. It is the 19th of March 2014. Let's start the bulletin with a look at the top stories.
Ivory Coast politics. Main opposition party accuses President Alassane Ouattara of using a census to return to ethnic politics. Five-year Kenya corruption plan. Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission launched 5-year strategic plan that will see Kenya become a corruption-free society. In pursuit of MH370. China starts searching its territory for the missing plane, focusing on north and south of the plane's last known location.
China has started searching its territory for the missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 as the international search intensifies. Efforts to find the aircraft are focusing on two vast air corridors north and south of the plane's last known location.
Chinese investigators are set to help Malaysia's government in the search for missing flight MH370. On Monday, French experts arrived to add their weight to the growing international hunt.
I don't think that there's any sense in starting a search in the sea as long as we have not located any debris, because the uncertainty zone for the moment is huge and there is no sense in starting searches under the sea when we don't have more precise idea of the plane's location.
Australia has taken charge of scouring the Indian Ocean as the search for the Malaysia Airlines Boeing widens. Prime Minister Tony Abbott said the measure was in response to a direct request from his Malaysian counterpart.
He asked that Australia take responsibility for the search in the southern vector, which the Malaysian authorities now think was one possible flight path for this ill-fated aircraft. I agreed that we would do so. I offered the Malaysian Prime Minister additional maritime surveillance resources, which he gratefully accepted.
On Sunday, India, one of up to 25 nations involved in the search for the missing plane, put its operations on hold while Malaysia reassesses the hunt, now into its second week. Flight MH370 vanished with 290 passengers and crew on board on March the 8th. A huge air and sea search has found no trace, and there's growing evidence that the plane's disappearance was carefully planned. Investigators are increasingly convinced the aircraft was deliberately steered way off its intended course by someone with enough knowledge to disable the plane's automatic tracking systems. Background checks are underway on all those on board the jet as the mystery of flight MH370 deepens by the day.
The European Union will next month host the 4th African Union Summit in Brussels. The summit, which will bring the EU and the African heads of state and government, is set to review the EU-African partnership.
Framework that formalizes the dialogue.
The much-awaited 2014 summit will illustrate the existing ties between the African Union and the European Union.
And going beyond development, it seeks to establish a partnership among equals. Gone are the days that Europe spoke to Africa, and here are the days that Europe speaks with Africa. So a partnership among equals, determined to tackle together issues of common concern.
According to the EU ambassador to Kenya, discussions on how to expand economic investments and trade will also feature. He also emphasized on the need to move from the donor and recipient relationship that has been in existence for some time now to trade partners.
But it also recognized that we should move from aid to trade. At the end of the day, to fight and eradicate poverty, it is trade that will do it. Development will remain important, but will play increasingly, as Africa grows, a secondary role.
The envoy cautioned against the misuse of donor funds, saying the Union will not hesitate to withdraw support if there's evidence of misappropriation.
At least 8 people were killed and several others injured in a series of car bombs in eastern Libya, in the eastern Libyan city of Benghazi. The attack targeted soldiers leaving a graduation ceremony. More than a dozen people were reported to be wounded.
At least 8 are killed after several car bombs explode at a Libyan army academy in the eastern city of Benghazi Monday. Security officials say the first bomb exploded at the academy's front gate as people were leaving a graduation ceremony. 1 or 2 other bombs exploded at almost the same time, wounding at least 13 people. No group is claiming responsibility for the attacks in Benghazi, where Libyan armed forces have been battling militants from hardline Islamist groups. Most countries have closed their consulates in Benghazi, and some foreign airlines have stopped flying there since the U.S. ambassador and 3 other Americans were killed in an Islamist militant attack in September 2012.
The body mandated to fight corruption in Kenya, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, yesterday launched a 5-year strategic plan that is aimed at making Kenya a corruption-free society. Officiated by Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta, the launch comes as an accountability statement to the people of Kenya by the government.
Standing tall as East Africa's economic powerhouse is a country that has for long been inflicted in a cycle of corruption. Kenya is, however, strengthening the fight against what the country's president compares to cancer. He vows it's time to win this war.
Corruption is to the economy and the nation at large what cancer is to the human body. It disgraces and debases a nation, and therefore we as a nation must agree that corruption must go.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is the body mandated to ensure the existence of a corruption-free Kenya. Today, they launched a 5-year strategic plan for the period 2013-2018. The Commission will pursue 3 strategic themes:
corruption reduction, institutionalize ethics and good governance, and also establish an institutional and regulatory framework for the fight against corruption.
In formulating the present strategic plan, the Commission factored a comprehensive review of the previous strategic plan. The irony of fighting corruption in Kenya lies therein. Slow judicial processes and adverse court decisions which consequently stop investigations or the prosecution of cases by the Commission. That is, however, likely not to happen if Kenya's Attorney General's promises are anything to go by.
The fight against corruption cannot be won without an effective legal framework. To this end, my office is at the forefront of ensuring that we have the necessary laws and policy to strengthen the anti-corruption initiative.
The magnitude of the level of corruption in Kenya is best indicated by the amount of resources needed to fight it. Approximately 13 billion Kenya shillings to deal with corruption. Commission Chairperson Mumu Atemu thinks this will be Kenya's next epic victory.
It is the submission of EACC, Your Excellency, that Kenya is now pursuing a 4th liberation, and that is the liberation from the yokes of corruption and impunity.
The doubting Thomases and the naysayers can only be put at bay with the president leading from the front. The State House hosts a corruption reporting website.
It should go without saying that it is your responsibility as a Kenyan not to engage in corruption, and also to report to the relevant authority incidences of this vice.
As a directive from the President, a comprehensive national ethics and anti-corruption policy will be developed by the Office of the Attorney General by December this year. An inspiration from Martin Luther King Jr. is, however, a good place to start.
That if a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets as well, so well, that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well.
The stakeholders in fighting corruption in Kenya all agree that this war remains by far one that will not be just won by having a 5-year strategic plan, but by implementing every word innate to the letter. Reporting for Ebru Africa News in Nairobi, Kenya, I'm Sam Gakunyi.
Gardaya city at the heart of Algeria has turned into a ghost town after the latest wave of sectarian violence that has left 3 people dead. The Oasis settlement, with its 90,000 inhabitants, was a scene of desolation on Monday morning, with the normally bustling market square empty and charred, with shop fronts bearing witness to the unrest that has engulfed the area last week.
The Oasis settlement, with its 90,000 inhabitants, was a scene of desolation Monday morning. Businesses came to a standstill. Security forces patrolled the streets following the deployment of extra personnel, and after Algeria's newly appointed Premier Youssef Yousfi visited on Sunday in a bid to defuse the situation.
It's very well that the authorities have intervened now. It's true. But in the beginning, they didn't move. We have said it from the beginning that this situation will get worse. They let it go and we have fallen. Until now, it's a very deep wound.
The UNESCO World Heritage Site, at least 370 miles south of Algiers, has been rocked since December by clashes between the Chamba community of Arab origin and the majority Mozabites, indigenous Berbers belonging to the Ibadi Muslim sect. The latest violence erupted after hundreds of Mozabites who had fled during the initial unrest returned to their houses, only to find many of them destroyed.
Everything is lost. My refrigerators, my cupboards, all. Everything in my butcher shop.
3 young Chambers were killed on Saturday night in circumstances that remain unclear, and other 190 people wounded, according to medical sources, including 29 members of the security forces. 5 people were killed in the previous wave of violence between the rival communities between December and February. The 2 communities have coexisted for centuries, but limited economic opportunities, despite Algeria's vast oil and gas wealth, have aggravated social tensions. Trade has also been Gardaya's economic strength. According to some residents, for 30 years tourism has flourished in Gardaya town due to the high demand for jewelry and carpets. Traditional villages also acted as tourist attraction sites.
A convoy of the African Union's AMISOM force was targeted by a car bomb outside the Somali capital, though according to witnesses, it was not immediately clear if there were any casualties.
The Al-Qaeda-linked group, the Al-Shabaab's spokesman, claimed the group carried out the attack, saying it killed 7 people, including 3 foreigners. The attack took place near a checkpoint on the road linking Mogadishu and the town of Afgoye. A Somali military official, Omar Adan, confirmed the attack, but declined to give the number of casualties. He, however, blamed the Al-Shabaab group, which have carried out several attacks in the Somali capital since the beginning of the year.
What they do and everything they say, including telling lies, is contrary to religion. They drink wine, smoke drugs in the worst way a human being can do. We have seen the places that they have raped girls and how they devastated the nation's buildings. They turned everything upside down. What people told us about them was very bad, and it's even worse that we have seen for ourselves.
On Saturday, a car bomb went off in central Mogadishu near a hotel popular with government officials and businessmen, injuring at least 1 person, though no claims were made for the attack. In February alone, major attacks in Mogadishu have included a car bomb at the gate of the airport, a major suicide attack on the presidential palace, and a car bombing on a cafe close to the intelligence headquarters. Hardline Al-Shabaab insurgents once controlled most of the southern and central Somalia, but withdrew from fixed positions in Mogadishu 2 years ago.
A section of members of parliament from the Jubilee coalition have dismissed claims by former Meru Governor Peter Munya that Kenya's Deputy President William Ruto is interfering with regional politics. Munya, whose election was nullified by the Court of Appeal recently, had questioned Ruto's frequent visits to the county, saying he was playing a political game.
I would like to urge the former governor of Meru to respect the presidency and respect the deputy president. Because throughout the trip, of which some of the meetings Munya himself attended, the deputy president never discussed the politics and the elections of Meru at any one point. It was all about development, it was all about the thanking the people of Greater Meru for electing a Jubilee government and urging them to have peace even during this time when we have the possibility of having elections in Meru again. So it is very, very important to actually put it clear that there is no one time politics of governorship of Meru featured anywhere in the deputy president's trip.
It needs to be clear to these glorified county council chairmen, or so-called governors, that we as members of parliament, we are elected as National Assembly leaders and we are not village elders. We therefore have every right to accompany the deputy president and the president to every corner of the Republic of Kenya, and they must respect both the president and the deputy president. There is a theme by them, a few of those very lost governors and former governors, to also try and create a wedge between His Excellency the President and the Deputy President. And we shall not allow them to create that wedge.
Ivory Coast's main opposition party has accused President Alassane Ouattara of using a census launched on Monday to boost his re-election chances, drawing warnings from the government of a return of ethnic politics. This is the first census in 16 years, which is essential but potentially perilous for a country incapable of estimating its growing population.
Ivory Coast, the world's top cocoa grower, was initially due to account its inhabitants in 2008. Ethnic identity and disputes over who should be considered Ivorian were at the root of a decade of political turmoil that ended in 2008 with a brief post-election civil war.
The last census was in 1998, so it has been 16 years. It was important that we could update the statistics, but also to see a little bit about the division of the population across the country.
The Ivorian Popular Front, the FPI, of former President Laurent Gbagbo, said the government was recruiting the census 30,000 agents along ethnic lines to pave way for the recent immigrants to vote in the presidential polls next year.
First, it was a waste of money. Secondly, it's a process of legitimizing exploration and exclusion of the part of Ivorian population. And thirdly, it's an operation to facilitate electoral fraud. None of that will calm the political stakes in Ivory Coast.
Planning and Development Minister Alberto Kesumabri, whose ministry is overseeing the census, said the process was completely separate.
We have introduced a few questions into the questionnaire that take into account data, including data identifying populations, and in particular the possibility that people have already been identified, and it will therefore accelerate the identification process and the results of the RGPH.
It is estimated that Ivory Coast's current population ranges from 22 to 25 million, but the government says it needs precise statistics to help guide its post-war development plan.
And finally, for years, chicken, mutton and lamb have been the dish of choice for Afghans. Yet in Jalalabad, fish is becoming ever more popular, encouraging some to start their own fish farming businesses.
An aroma of barbecue and spices wafts down this Jalalabad street. Here, unlike anywhere else in Afghanistan, grilled fish is the speciality.
Our recipe: we add oil, spices, salt and lemon to these fish.
It may be popular, but most of the fish comes from Pakistan. Relative stability and better infrastructure has kept the price of Pakistani fish low. Yet some wonder why, after 13 years of Western activity in Afghanistan, the country is still unable to compete economically with its neighbours.
What has been done so far by the international community is not satisfactory. They have taught us how to eat fish, but not how to catch fish. So far, what we need, things like electricity, dams, subsidies for fish farms, nothing has been done.
The
There's plenty of fresh water in and around Jalalabad, and a group of local businessmen has launched its own fish farm. Ghulam went to train in India before some Pakistani know-how got these tanks up and running. He and his partners now farm trout, but turning a profit is still some way off.
We are not successful so far in this business. I personally work very hard. I've invested about $10,000 that I earned from my other businesses and spent it here. I'm hopeful that a time will come when I will have a successful business.
One of the main problems is security, or a lack of, which has scared off investors. And while Pakistan may be the benchmark locally, analysts are confident that Afghanistan can catch up.
It is like a business which requires very technical. With a small problem, all farms are washed out. It's the same like it's poultry business. It's a business that it's sustainable because it has huge demands in Afghanistan. It is sustainable because Afghan environment is suitable for fish farming.
Western troops will pull out of Afghanistan later this year, and by then Jalalabad's fish farmers hope that the situation will have improved, so that one day perhaps fish can take its place alongside chicken and lamb on the nation's menus.
And with that, we come to the end of the Bulletin on Africa this morning. Join us next as we take a look at the leading stories in the social media platform in our segment on Trend.